Alucard, what is your business here?
I've come to put an end to this.
Alucard! Alucard is a fairly straightforward footsie fighter who excels at dancing around his opponent from mid-range and catching mistakes with a wide variety of pokes and disjointed strikes, all while making use of a versatile specials kit to either close the distance or disengage from a fight. As a fighter, Alucard's blend of strong offensive and defensive options allow him to have a strong stage presence and make the most of each interaction he has with his foes, even if he ends up lacking the range of his fellow Castlevania characters. On top of that, Alucard sports a strong mix of burst movement and frame data, making his advantage state considerably strong and his ability to juggle pretty great. As a result, one of the last things you want to do is recklessly pressure Alucard without a plan, as doing so can put you in a world of pain. But, as should be expected, there are a couple of aspects that will keep Alucard's strength in check, and much like his Castlevania brethren, chief among them is his horrible disadvantage state. While he's very good at keeping foes out, Alucard in turn struggles to force foes out once they've made it past his initial barriers. And while his frame data is a drastic step up from the Belmonts, his combo breaking options are limited and easy to counter if his opponent can predict them correctly. On top of this, Alucard's edge guarding potential is rather limited, thanks in part to his below average airspeed. This forces Alucard's player to rely on frame traps at the ledge in order to try and keep his foes from returning back to the stage. And if his opponent knows how to work around them, it might prove difficult to halt a reapproach without putting yourself at considerable risk. As an Alucard player, it's your job to mind the distance between you and your foes and peak your time to engage carefully, all while using your large normals and versatile special options to control the neutral and wall off foes to try to get too close. If your opponent gives you an opening, take it and don't relent, but make sure you don't push yourself too hard, as if you're caught out of position, you have nobody to blame but yourself for the punishment that you're about to endure. Alucard stands as a tall humanoid character, with his height being roughly on par with his fellow Castlevania representatives, Simon and Richter. A powerful Dampier often referred to as the Vampire Prince, Adrian Fahrenheit Tepes is the son of Dracula and one of the most iconic characters in Castlevania history. With the enhanced abilities of a vampire and the gentle heart of a human, Adrian was a being who was destined for greatness. For not only was he stronger than any human, but he also had the potential to be just as strong as his father, if not stronger. However, his life would undergo a profound change after the death of his mother, Lisa, who, in her dying moments, would tell her son to not take his anger out on the humans, for their lives were already filled with such hardships. These words would stick with Adrian as he grew up under the influence of his father, as while he was taught to control dark magic and carefully trained to become a warrior of evil, he would inevitably break away from his father's side and take up his blade against his armies, all while adopting the name Alucard to show his opposition for his father's beliefs. Ever since this point, Alucard has assisted in the defeat of his father on multiple occasions, with one instance even forcing him to destroy him alone due to the unexpected lack of a Belmont. But it's clear, wherever his father's evil went, he would not be far behind, and that's no different here in the world of Smash. As a fighter, Alucard is being designed to be a graceful yet dangerous sword fighter whose animations not only match his elegant appearance, but also sport enough aspects to represent the fact that he possesses the powers of a vampire. As for his basic animations, a lot of them will either pull from or build upon the animations he features in Symphony of the Night, with this including his idle, walk, jump, double jump, and his iconic backstep. Although you unfortunately won't be able to schmoove with it like you can in the original title. As for other references to his iconic Symphony appearance, Alucard will be making use of his Alucard shield during both his regular shield and parry animations, with the latter having Alucard use his shield to swat away incoming attacks and leave himself in an advantageous position. Overall, Alucard's playstyle exudes an air of confidence that his player is going to need to reflect in order to succeed in a fight. And while his focus on swordplay might make him seem similar to that of Marth, rest assured that Alucard is a completely different beast. In terms of mobility options, Alucard will sport 2 jumps, all while being able to wall jump and wall cling. While the the Castlevania series was originally known as an action platformer series throughout its lifespan on Nintendo consoles, the release of Symphony of the Night on the PS1 would mark the series' transition from platformer to RPG. And while there may have been rare instances of the series returning to its original formula since this point, this genre would become the norm for the series going forward. In comparison, the whip-toting protagonist of the platformers would be succeeded by Alucard, a character who takes a step away from the whip and sub-weapons gameplay loop, and instead sports the ability to not only swap between a huge arsenal of weapons, but also utilize a variety of magical abilities, including but not limited to the same dark magic used by his father Dracula. While this formula would be altered by various protagonists going forward, the fact that Alucard was the first to depart from the norm and bring in a whole new gameplay feel for the Castlevania series is part of what makes him such a memorable character, if not for the fact that he was as close as one could possibly get to actually playing as Dracula in a Castlevania game. Well, at least at the time. Regardless, this aspect of Alucard's design is what makes up the basis of his character mechanic. As while it's less of a unique mechanic, and more of a way to separate him from the Belmonts already in Smash, the abilities in his possession definitely help him stand out amongst not only his Castlevania contemporaries, but also the various swords in the Smash. And this mechanic's name is Dark Lord's Blood. In Smash, Alucard's combat will focus around a mixture of swordplay and spells, with his trusty Alucard sword taking center stage, while weapons like the Rune Sword, Masamune, and Crisegrim are utilized for some of his more powerful attacks. On top of this, Alucard's gameplay will focus less on keep away and make use of his improved mobility to carefully maneuver around his foes at mid-range, with this leading to a much greater punish game than the Belmonts in exchange for shorter range and far weaker stage control. But while he's more than a match for most foes in a bout of physical combat, it's Alucard's magical prowess where he can be considered truly dangerous. Having been taught by Dracula himself, Alucard will complement his swordplay with a slew of vampiric spells, with this allowing Alucard to reliably tech chase his foes and not only add on to his stage presence, but also his survivability. As what good is a vampire if they can't devour the souls of the living? Alucard might claim he hates the taste of blood, but his spell list would beg to differ. Consider it a necessary evil to come out on top in a fight, but since Smash is also home to its fair share of malevolent villains, it might also be considered a just desserts. This makes up the basics of Alucard as a fighter, a straightforward yet versatile character whose unique blend of swordplay and spells will allow him to play the match at his own pace, all while his ability to switch between offensive and defensive playstyle will keep his foes constantly on their toes, for if they either fail or refuse to meet his attacks head on, they're little more than lambs to the slaughter for this devilishly dandy Dampier. And now that you know all about Alucard as a fighter, let's now move on to his normals and start discussing the attacks that will put his foes to the sword. Alucard's normals will mainly be comprised of attacks featuring his main weapon of choice, the Alucard sword, with its long blade allowing Alucard to pressure his foes from afar as he carefully moves in and out of their damage range. As he is regarded as a master of weapons-based combat, Alucard's fighting style is meant to exude an air of confident reluctance, as although he possesses combat abilities beyond mortal men, he is not one to fight unless he feels it's absolutely necessary. Despite this, however, Alucard's need to always have a plan and leave nothing up to chance ensures he will do everything necessary in order to come out on top in a fight, which will make him quite dangerous when pushed to his limits. Alucard's neutral combo is Nocturne Cutter Combo, a versatile combo option that will have Alucard unleash a series of sword slashes with his trademark blade, starting with a horizontal slash, then transitioning into a 2-hit cross slash, then finishing the combo with a piercing stab to launch nearby foes away. In terms of design, this combo will sport both solid range and startup speed, allowing Alucard to quickly punish neutral mistakes and deal some decent damage in the process. And thanks to the multi-hit properties of the second hit, it's more than possible for Alucard to either follow up with a variety of attacks at low to mid percents on hit, or potentially cancel into a grab or special move on block. While it can be a useful tool in Alucard's kit if used effectively, however, it should be noted that its launch power is fairly low, and outside of a combo window at low to mid percents, it pales in comparison to Alucard's other neutral options. On top of that, the final blow of this combo is unsafe on block thanks to its slow recovery speed, so if you don't have the opportunity to cancel the double hit, or are forced to finish the combo on block, it can potentially lead to some serious punishment if your foe reads your bluff. Alucard's forward tilt is Alucard Slash, a simple yet very useful attack option that will have Alucard perform a wide-hitting horizontal slash with his trademark sword. The blade of the weapon cloaked in a blue aura as it cuts through anything in its path with some solid force. This attack is based on the Alucard sword's basic attack animation from Symphony of the Night, and with solid speed, range, and damage, this is one of Alucard's go-to options for keeping pressure while maintaining a reasonable distance from his foes. This balance of stats also makes it one of Alucard's go-to options for button checking, repositioning, or even confirming kills at higher percents. And as an added bonus, the player is capable of aiming the slash up and down to either stealth jump-ins or two-frame foes at the ledge. While that's the case, however, its overall strengths means it's a move your opponent is going to have to deal with constantly, and as a result, an over-reliance on this one move can lead to Alucard getting heavily punished, especially if his foe knows the matchup and can reliably close the distance during its recovery frames. Alucard's up tilt is Dark Crescent, another simple yet useful attack option that will have Alucard slash up and over his head with his sword, the length of the blade covering a wide arc and knocking any foe hit upwards into the air. This attack works as both an anti-air and combo starter, allowing Alucard to follow up with not only a variety of aerials, but even into itself at very early percents. On top of that, the attack's damage path will cover the entirety of Alucard's hurt box as he attacks, making it very difficult to trade with or punch from above if your opponent isn't either sporing a long-range disjoint or a counter. Overall, it's a reliable button that has very few weaknesses, with its only drawbacks being its weak shield pressure and average at best recovery speed, meaning it's quite unsafe if blocked at close range. Alucard's down tilt is Alucard's Sweep, a versatile poke option that will have Alucard perform a wide-hitting slash along the ground, knocking back any foe that steps into his damage range. A reference to the standard crouch attack of the Alucard's sword, this attack will cover a wide range and hit very low to the floor, with its deceptive hitbox being one of the few ways that Alucard can edgeguard his foes without putting himself at considerable risk. On top of that, this attack will launch foes up and away from Alucard on hit, allowing his player to follow up with moves like his forward tilt at lower percents, while either chasing with an aerial or special move at higher percents. It also serves as a great way to frame trap foes into guaranteed grab setups, but this aspect of the move is very precise and won't work on the game's smaller characters, so try to not rely on it too much. Alucard's dash attack is Sanguine Skewer, a powerful advancing option that will have Alucard rush forward through the air, his sword extended in front of him as it pierces through anything in its path with some serious force. A reference to the attacking method of various weapons in Symphony of the Night, namely the S-Stock, this attack will cover a large horizontal range and provide Alucard with some decent protection from the front, thanks in part to the disjoint provided by his sword. And if the player manages to catch their foe making a mistake, this attack is more than capable of closing out stocks at fairly early percents, and that goes double for if Alucard is able to catch his foe near the ledge. While that's the case, however, this move's slow recovery makes it highly committal, and as a result, it's very unsafe on both block and whiff. This makes this attack better suited for tech chasing than anything else, as throwing this move out recklessly in the neutral will greatly cut down Alucard's survivability. For his get-up attacks, Alucard will slash around himself using his sword, all while he performs a sweeping slash for his ledge attack. For his smash attacks, Alucard will be taking a step away from his familiar one-handed blade and instead be making use of the three most powerful weapons that he can acquire during his adventures through both of his father's castles. And where the Alucard sword is designed to accentuate Alucard's skill as a swordsman, these weapons are designed to accentuate the inhuman feats that Alucard can reach thanks to his vampiric roots. These weapons are the aforementioned Crissaegrim, Masamune, and Rune Sword, and each of these deadly tools will truly bring an impact that's unlike anything in Alucard's kit. Alucard's forward smash is Belmonts Pain, a powerful rapid-hitting attack that will have Alucard perform a massive overhead slash with the iconic Crissaegrim, the blade releasing multiple strikes at once as soon as the tip of the sword makes contact with the floor. These wind-like strikes will pull the foe closer to Alucard as they deal damage, all before they're launched away with one final blast following the blade's original trail. In terms of design, this attack sports high damage and knockback growth, with this allowing Alucard to heavily punish over aggression and potentially lock his foes at the ledge. Despite this, however, this move's multi-hit properties make it deal fairly low shield damage, and as a result, it's quite easy to punish on block. Alucard's up smash is Arc Rising, another powerful multi-hit attack that will have Alucard don the devastating Masamune, and after taking a brief moment to build up energy, he'll launch himself into the air with a powerful rising slash, the blade creating a whirlwind of damage that will drag any foe too close along for the ride. Based on the ability of the same name from Castlevania Grimoire of Souls, this attack sports a massive horizontal and vertical hitbox, allowing Alucard to snag foes from a considerable range away before launching them at the end of the move's damage path. But unlike Belmonts Pain, this move's rapid slashes will not vortex the foe towards Alucard. This means that it's more than possible for opponents to DI out of this move if they're caught near the edge of the slash. And with a mixture of slow recovery and weak shield damage, it's an attack that's fairly unsafe to use outside of either frame traps or a couple of very specific throw setups. Finally, Alucard's down smash is Verboten's Circlet, a highly powerful attack that will have Alucard make use of the Rune Sword, the massive blade swinging around Alucard in a huge arc and launching anything unlucky enough to be in its path. With a massive hitbox and damage output, the Rune Sword ends up scoring the highest damage out of all of Alucard's smash attacks, with its power being offset by a slow attack and recovery speed that makes it easy to punish from almost any range on block or whiff. Despite this, however, this move's high hit stun and shield pressure might make blocking it head-on an unsafe gamble, especially if Alucard's player knows how to effectively frame trap his foes. Also, as an added bonus, the Rune Sword's attack will sport the blade's infamous verboten text within its attack trail, which is made more clear thanks to its slower attack speed here in Smash. As he is a character with large floaty jumps, Alucard will come equipped with a set of aerials to complement his design, with these allowing him to both control space and jump in on foes with notable effectiveness. And much like his grounded normals, almost all of these attacks will come courtesy of his trusty Alucard sword. Despite this, however, there are a couple of surprises up Alucard's sleeve that might make jumping in on him a risky gamble, so approach at your own risk. Alucard's neutral air is Crimson Circlet, a simple aerial option that will have Alucard spin around in midair, the blade of his sword striking in a crooked circlet around himself and knocking back any nearby foe on hit. In terms of design, this wide-hitting attack will extend far past Alucard's hurtbox, allowing the dandy Dampier to check buttons from a safe range and put pressure on his foes either on the approach or on the retreat. On top of this, the crooked angle of this slash will allow Alucard to reliably strike foes below himself as he advances, and with a near instant cancel window, he'll also be able to immediately transition into a grounded normal if he doesn't fast fall right away. Overall, it's a reliable neutral option that has its uses on both offense and defense, so make sure you teach your foe to respect your space. Alucard's forward air is Vampire Slash, another simple yet versatile aerial option that will have Alucard attack out in front of himself with a wide-hitting horizontal slash, his blade taking on a blue glow as he slashes and dealing some notable damage to any foe in his path. As his forward tilt is a reference to the grounded base attack of the Alucard sword, this move is a reference to the Alucard sword's standard aerial attack. And as an added bonus, Alucard will be able to change his attack's angle to either strike straight out in front of himself or at a downward angle, with this also altering the launch angle of the strike and creating a move that's good for both spacing and kill confirms. It also happens to be another one of Alucard's few decent edgeguarding tools, so if you're willing to put yourself at risk by jumping off stage, you might be able to close out stocks at fairly early percents thanks to this move's blend of solid speed and range. Alucard's up air is Blood Moon, a large versatile aerial option that will have Alucard perform a flip in midair, his blade pointing to the sky and covering a massive arc above himself as he attacks. In terms of design, this attack sacrifices a bit of speed for extra range and damage, and given Alucard's attack pattern, its huge hitbox makes it a solid kill confirm that's quite difficult to challenge from above. Despite this, however, the lock-in speed doesn't only come from the move's startup, but also its recovery, as landing with this move too quickly will leave Alucard wide open to punishment. This can potentially be bypassed if Alucard uses this move out of a full hop, but it's still a move that his player will be forced to commit to in order to use effectively. Alucard's back air is Sanguine Slice, a powerful reversal option that will have Alucard swing his sword out behind his back, the blade covering a massive horizontal range and launching anything in its path with some serious force. In comparison to his other options, this attack sports the highest knockback growth of Alucard's aerials, allowing him to reliably secure kills through frame traps or running off of platforms, and to top off its impressive stats, making it effective out of short hops and a reliable combo ender at lower percents. Despite this, however, the move's speed doesn't translate to its recovery, as using this move as a landing or spacing option can leave Alucard open for punishment if he spaces himself poorly. Finally, Alucard's down air is Comet Kick, an unorthodox yet potentially devastating aerial option that will have Alucard perform a very fast falling kick through the air, striking the first opponent hit and dealing solid damage before the foe is launched away. A reference to not only the iconic ability utilized by Richter, but also an ability that Alucard himself can use in Symphony of the Night, this unique fastfall aerial will travel at a slight angle as Alucard descends, and once he makes contact with a foe, he'll use them as a makeshift spring to launch himself back up into the air. As for the opponent themselves, they'll either be spiked by the impact of the blow, or launched upwards if hit by a late strike, with this having the potential to lead to a variety of follow-ups, and potentially even kill confirms. But while that's the case, this move will put Alucard at considerable risk, thanks in part to its committal nature. While he can arguably make better use of it than either of the Belmonts, if only thanks to the fact that his recovery potential isn't nearly as awful as theirs, the cancel window for this move is very small, meaning you're almost definitely going to be left open to punishment if you miss. Alucard will grab his opponent by reaching forward with his free hand, his superhuman strength making his grip next to unbreakable as he performs a knee strike for his pummel. As for his throws, Alucard's options are designed to feel like a natural extension of his normals. As while a majority of them can potentially kill with proper positioning, these throws are designed more for repositioning and setting up frame traps than outright confirming kills. Regardless, they have the potential to be useful tools in Alucard's game plan, so you're going to want to learn their ins and outs before going into a real match. Alucard's forward throw is Duelist Stance, a stylish throw option that will have Alucard unleash a series of rapid thrusts from his sword, stabbing his opponent multiple times before he sends them flying with an advancing thrust. In terms of design, this throw sports solid damage and high knockback growth, allowing Alucard to force opponents into his optimal damage range at even lower percents. On top of that, it also has the potential to be followed up by moves like dash attack at lower percents, but the window for this follow-up is quite small. Thanks to this, it's best to stick to repositioning and frame traps, although an unexpected chaser might be a great way to catch an opponent off guard. Alucard's up throw is Bleeding Moonlight, another stylish throw option that will have Alucard toss his opponent up into the air, all before catching them on the way back down with an upward stab from his sword. Where his forward throw is best used for frame traps and resetting pressure, this throw is designed to get foes off the ground and put them in a position where they're forced to land, with this allowing Alucard to make use of his excellent advantage state to lock foes down and prevent them from ever making it back to the stage. This can be a devastating option against characters that have trouble landing, which also happens to include his fellow Castlevania representatives Simon and Richter. And as an added bonus, this throw can serve as a solid kill confirm if he can snag his foe on the top platform of stages like Battlefield. Alucard's back throw is Misstep, a more straightforward throw option that will have Alucard transform into a gas cloud before passing through his opponent, rapidly damaging them in the process. As the foe is unable to move from the inhibiting effects of the gas, Alucard will quickly revert back into his regular form and send them flying with a powerful horizontal slash. Compared to Alucard's other options, this throw sports the highest base damage and knockback, with this allowing the player to force frame traps with a couple of Alucard's specials and even force a pressure reset, which is highly useful considering Alucard's inherent weaknesses. On top of that, this throw can also serve as a useful kill confirm if you got your back to the ledge, although the kill range might be a bit too high for it to be a go-to option. Finally, Alucard's down throw is Lord's Heal, yet another stylish throw option that will have Alucard disappear in a pillar of blazing light, and before his opponent can react, he'll drop down on top of them with a double boot stomp, the force of the attack smashing the opponent into the floor before they're bounced up into the air. Where the other throws in Alucard's kit focus more around positioning, this throw is, in turn, purely designed to be a combo starter, with its generous combo window allowing Alucard to follow up with a huge variety of his grounded and aerial buttons depending on his opponent's percent. While that's the case, however, most of Alucard's combos only consist of 2 to 3 hits at most, so even if the combo window is decent, it might not do much for Alucard in the long run outside of a small increase in damage. It's finally time to start talking about Alucard's specials, and as you might have come to expect, this is where the Vampire Prince will go beyond being an expert swordsman and show off his true potential as a fighter through the use of several powerful dark magic spells. In terms of design, these spells will improve Alucard's stage presence and make it possible to tech chase or frame trap foes from a range his sword can't cover, with this making Alucard a master of set play and a character that can be one of the deadliest in the game if his foes aren't able to keep him close and restrict his ability to set up attacks. While that's the case, Alucard also ends up spoiling a couple of options that are designed to punish over aggression and make sure his foes keep their distance, which, as a mid-range fighter, is exactly what he wants you to do. Starting with his neutral special, Alucard will make use of a versatile projectile option to pressure foes at mid-range, tech chase his foes, or potentially even trap them into an unblockable setup. And while they might not serve as a strong zoning option, there's still an attack that Alucard's foes will need to be prepared for at all ranges. Hellfire! With this, Alucard will follow in his father's footsteps and hold up his cloak using one of his arms. And after a brief moment of build-up, a ball of fire will form within the darkness of his cloak before launching out in front of Alucard, dealing damage to the first target it hits. In terms of design, this highly volatile projectile is fairly unique amongst the standard special projectiles of Smash, as while most projectiles are designed to keep foes away from their user, Alucard's projectiles are actually designed to not only improve Alucard's offensive strengths, but even make his ability to approach even stronger. But how does that even work? Well, for starters, Hellfire ends up not only sporting 3 levels of power, but also 3 levels of speed, with the version of the move you get depending on how long you hold the B button before launching the fireball. For comparison, the weakest version of this move will only launch 1 fireball at a time, with this lone projectile also moving the slowest. The middle version will deal more damage, travel slightly faster, and feature 2 fireballs as opposed to 1, while the most powerful version of this move will launch out 3 fireballs at a much higher speed and deal some notable damage on impact. This might make it seem like only the fully charged Hellfire has the potential to be useful, but that couldn't be further from the truth, as while its movement speed is slow, its recovery is quite fast. This will allow Alucard's player to recover quickly and use the advancing projectile as a makeshift shield, as it actually ends up moving slower than Alucard himself can run. This can make Alucard's ability to approach against some characters notably easier, and thanks to its high priority, the Fireball will be able to cancel out all but the highest damaging projectiles in the game. As for the fully charged variation, this wall of damage will move roughly 1.2 times faster than the fully charged projectiles of characters like Samus and Mewtwo, allowing Alucard to punish his foes from a considerable range away. But while fast once active, this move's startup prevents him from being an attack that Alucard can throw out at a moment's notice, as he cannot store Hellfire's charge and must do it all in one go. Thankfully, there are a few extra aspects to make this move potentially difficult to react to, and one of them comes in the form of Hellfire's infamous teleport, which can be performed if the player holds the control stick either forwards or backwards after pressing the B button. In this state, Alucard will be able to bypass incoming damage, and if the B button is released during the teleport, Alucard can even cancel the teleport early and potentially catch his foes off guard. This also serves as one of Alucard's best ways to disengage from a fight, as the risk of getting hit by a fireball will more than likely force your foes to retreat and give Alucard some breathing room. If your opponent can reliably predict where you're going to appear, Alucard will be left wide open to some serious punishment, and that goes double for if his foe is able to get behind him, as Alucard cannot turn around mid-attack. Moving on to his side special, Alucard will make use of his ability to shapeshift and perform an explosive gap-closing attack to rush foes down and teach his opponents to respect the gap that Alucard likes to fight from, with this devastating offensive option having the potential to either end combos or even stocks should his foe be caught near the edge of a stage. If Hellfire wasn't enough to make you fear the potential of Alucard's neutral, this attack definitely will. Wing Smash! With this, Alucard will take a moment to focus his power, and after a brief moment of build-up, he'll disappear into a shroud of bats before rocketing forward as a bat himself, launching anything in his path with some serious force. In terms of design, this version of Wing Smash will take after its appearance in Castlevania Grimoire of Souls, which, ironically enough, actually takes from Alucard's appearance in Smash as an assist trophy, bringing this full circle to create an attack that will cover a large horizontal range and provide Alucard with a dangerous set play tool. And if the player chooses to dedicate themselves to the move's charge mechanic, it has the potential to become both stronger and faster. As he charges, Alucard will become surrounded by a series of bats, with this not only acting as a visual indication for the move's increased strength, but also serves as a reference to the Bat Cloud ability from Castlevania 3, one of the two major abilities that Alucard can perform as a playable character. And once fully charged, Alucard will be able to travel roughly twice as far as the regular Wing Smash. While charging this move can definitely improve its potency in the fight, however, the charge cannot be stored, meaning that Alucard's player will need to commit to this attack in order to make the most of it, much like Hellfire before it. This will encourage Alucard's player to mind their positioning and properly utilize the rest of their kit in order to maintain a gap between them and their foes. But thankfully, the base version of Wing Smash is far from useless. In comparison, Instant Wing Smash is a dangerous neutral tool that will come out quickly and deal some solid damage, and if spaced correctly, it can be one of Alucard's strongest defensive tools thanks to its near unreactable speed and disjointed hitbox, much like Sonic's Spin Dash. This speed is, in turn, complemented by the ability to pass through shields during the move's active frames, which can allow Alucard to escape the corner and potentially even reset neutral. But it should be noted that, while he won't go into a helpless state, this move's recovery time is fairly slow, meaning that Alucard himself will be left vulnerable for quite a while as he transforms back into his regular form. This can result in Alucard getting heavily punished if his foe can properly predict where he's going to come to a stop, so try to not over-rely on it. Moving on to his recovery special, Alucard will take a brief step away from his spells and make use of a technique from Symphony of the Night to rocket upwards into the air and make jumping over Alucard a potentially terrifying affair, all while providing the Vampire Prince with a rather volatile recovery option that can either be one of the game's best or next to useless. While inconsistent, it's got the potential to shift the momentum of a match in your favor when it works. High Jump. Acquired in Symphony of the Night by obtaining the Gravity Boots item, this will have Alucard rocket himself up into the air at incredible speed, his body cloaked in a bright blue light as he becomes immune to all forms of damage. In terms of design, this recovery will cover a massive vertical distance, with the player being able to alter Alucard's launch angle by holding either left or right during the move's startup, much like the player can do in Symphony of the Night. On top of that, Alucard will also not go into a freefall state once the move comes to a close, allowing the Vampire Prince to pursue his foes high into the sky with a potentially stuck closing aerial. But this pales in comparison to what Alucard can achieve if he manages to hit his foe with high jump directly. Should Alucard make direct contact with an opponent before the move passes its 50% mark, Alucard will instantly flip around and drive both of his feet into them. And before they can react, Alucard will perform a flip kick to send them flying with heavy force. This pseudo command grab is designed to reference the way that Alucard lands on ceilings using high jump in Symphony of the Night. And as you might have expected, this attack is one of Alucard's best ways of confirming kills off the top of the screen, with it being fairly easy to set up using up throw at mid to high percents. This instant flip technique will also work on more than just foes, as should Alucard make contact with a solid surface, namely a ceiling or the underside of a stage, he'll not only be able to cling to it for a short while, but he'll also gain access to another use of high jump, with this greatly improving his recovery potential if used properly. While this might seem a bit problematic, especially if Alucard uses it to try and camp underneath the stage, it should be known that this reset will only work once, for attempting to do so a second time will simply just result in Alucard plummeting to his death. Also, as an added bonus, Alucard will be able to perform his second jump out of this recovery, should he have used this move beforehand, which is good, as doing so might just be one of the ways the player can potentially bypass this recovery's massive weakness, which just so happens to be its launch angle. While it is possible for the player to slightly alter the trajectory during takeoff, high jump's recovery angle is mostly fixed, meaning that unless Alucard is near the ledge, chances are high you're going to be hanging out with Chrom in the blast zone. This, when mixed with Wing Smash, makes Alucard's recovery highly volatile at best and potentially crippling at worst, as unless he's recovering at very specific angles, chances are high he won't be able to recover properly. This is also why going off stage to edgeguard foes might be a bad idea, as depending on the stage you're on, you might not be able to confirm a stock closer without giving up one of your own stocks as payment. Thankfully, Alucard's access to wall cling and wall jump might be the thing that gives him a fighting chance in certain matchups. And as is to be expected, this is going to be one of the most difficult aspects of Alucard that players are going to need to learn, should they wish to play him optimally. Finally, for his down special, Alucard will make use of what's often considered his most powerful spell to punish over aggression and turn poorly placed attacks into an opportunity for big damage. And playing into his vampiric roots, he'll be devouring far more than just his foes' hopes for victory. Get caught by this, and it will be your turn to pay tribute. Soul Steal! With this, Alucard will grip his cape tightly in one hand before swinging it out in front of himself. Its fabric covered in a blazing hellfire aura that will heavily stun any foe it comes into contact with, all while deflecting incoming blows from would-be attackers. At this point, the stricken opponent will be unable to move as shards of their soul begin to seep out of their body, with these shards appearing as bright green bits of light that will float around their stunned form. And before they're able to recover from the damage, Alucard will finish this devastating two-part attack by rushing forward and running the caught foe through with his sword, his blade absorbing the excess soul fragments before violently pulling the sword out of their body. In terms of design, this unique take on Soul Steal will act as both a physical attack and parry, with its high level of priority being able to beat out almost any type of physical attack, save for counters and moves that ignore armor, like Lil Mac's KO uppercut or Cloud's finishing touch. If the first hit manages to connect, then the foe will be locked into the follow-up attack, with it acting like a fully armored command grab that cannot be disrupted by outside means. And as you might have come to expect, Alucard will be healed for 1/3 of the damage dealt by this deadly 1-2 combo, much like how Soul Steal will heal Alucard by a set amount for each foe on screen when used in Symphony of the Night. All of this comes together to create an attack that can shift the momentum of a fight in Alucard's favor and serve as one of the few ways that Alucard's player can deal with their painful disadvantage state. But while very effective when it works, it should be noted that the move does come with a couple of restricting factors that will keep its strength in check, and chief amongst them is the fact that this move will only parry physical attacks. Should Alucard get struck by a projectile during the active frames of Soul Steal, he will simply take damage and be launched as he would normally. But thanks to its armored startup, it might be possible for Alucard to attack through projectiles with weaker priority, like Samus's missiles or the lower tiers of Robin's Thunder Spell, all before immediately punishing their casters. On top of this, the speed of Soul Steal is notably slower than your average counter, as where most characters sport a counter-starved speed of roughly 5 to 7 frames, Soul Steal will come out on frame 11, meaning that Alucard's player will need to use his attack preemptively should he want to catch some of the game's faster buttons. This also means that this move can potentially be beaten out by grabs should your foe be close enough, so make sure there's at least a modicum of distance between you and your opponent before you try to use this move. Next up is the final smash, and for this, Alucard will stop holding back and show his foes just what it means to challenge the power of a vampire. For once he has them in his sights, not even the crack of dawn will be able to save them from the pain they're about to endure. This is the Son of Dracula. When the final smash starts, Alucard will scorn his foes for messing with powers beyond their comprehension, all before pulling out the stopwatch sub-weapon and using it to freeze time in front of himself. While Alucard's design intentionally strayed away from the use of sub-weapons to separate himself from the already playable Belmonts, the fact that this item was the only sub-weapon that Alucard could use in Castlevania 3, as well as one of the few sub-weapons not used by the vampire hunters, made it the perfect way for Alucard to begin his final smash. And should any foe be caught in this temporal trap, they'll be frozen and left wide open to the oncoming beating as the cinematic final smash begins. At this point, Alucard will draw his sword and quickly activate Dark Metamorphosis, his body becoming engulfed in a red aura that will flare as he prepares to attack. And with the use of both his superhuman speed and the exclusive ability of the Alucard sword, Alucard will rush forward and unleash a two-man combo to quickly rack up damage on the caught foe. With Alucard moving so fast, it appears that he's in two places at once. Once Alucard feels he's dealt enough damage, he will then begin to start setting up the end of the final smash by launching his foe up into the air, all before using his inhuman speed to meet them midway and launch them back down towards the floor. Alucard will continue this attack pattern until the foe's trail creates a pentagram, and once they are launched back towards the attack starting position, Alucard will catch them with one hand and finish the final smash by performing an enhanced version of Soul Steal, with this not only devouring the shards carved out by the combo attack, but the foe's soul in its entirety, all before time returns to normal and the blackened husk of the foe crumbles to dust. In terms of design, this cinematic final smash will combine numerous abilities from Symphony of the Night to create an attack that feels true to Alucard's character, and should the caught opponent be over 100% damage once the final smash concludes, they will be instantly KO'd, all while Alucard heals for 66% of the damage dealt. This can be a dangerous comeback tool if used properly in multiplayer matches, but it should be known that this final smash will only be able to hit one opponent at a time, so make sure you time this move carefully. For his victory theme, Alucard will take a step away from the level complete theme used by the Belmonts, and instead make use of the iconic Dracula's Castle theme from Symphony of the Night. This shift is thanks to the fact that, in the swap from platformer to RPG, Symphony of the Night doesn't support themes for defeating bosses or completing sections of a map, and given this tune is the most iconic theme to come out of the game, it's only fitting that it also serves as Alucard's victory theme here in Smash. Victory animation number 1 will show a cluster of lights swirl in from all sides of the screen, and after coalescing together, a health vial will be left in its place, which will fall through the air before being caught by Alucard. After giving his foe a few parting words, Alucard will then fade into a cloud of mist before disappearing from sight, the screen being left blank until the player cycles back to the character select screen. This is a reference to when Alucard defeats a major boss in Symphony of the Night, where a health vial would spawn to signify the fight is over and congratulate the player by permanently increasing their max HP. Victory animation number 2 will show Alucard unleashing a series of elegant yet brutal sword slashes, all while telling his foes to go back whence they came. After taking a moment to continue showing his skills with the sword, Alucard will end this animation by striking a pose reminiscent of the one seen on the cover of Symphony of the Night. Finally, victory animation number 3 will have Alucard fly into view of the camera in his bat form, all before transforming back into his regular form and striking a battle-ready pose. As he does so, he will remark to the camera that, as long as there is a breath in his body, he will never stop fighting against the darkness, with this being a reference to the retort that Alucard gives to Death just before his boss fight in Symphony of the Night. Taunt number 1 will have Alucard outstretch his hand and snap his fingers, a ball of hellfire appearing in his palm as he remarks that his foes would be wise to watch their step. At this point, Alucard will clench his fist shut and cause the flame to disappear, all before he returns to his idle animation. While not normally an abrasive character, it's clear that Alucard is not above using force when he feels that it's a necessity, so consider this your one and only chance to run away. Taunt number 2 will have Alucard draw his sword and strike a defensive pose, his hand motioning for his foes to approach as he claims he will put an end to this. This can be considered a continuation of his first taunt, for should you fail to heed his warnings, Alucard will not only accept your challenge, but potentially even give you the first move. As for the voice line, this references the line he gives to Death when they first meet at the beginning of Symphony of the Night, as well as the first time that we actually get to hear Alucard speak. Finally, taunt number 3 will have Alucard use his vampiric powers to take on the form of a wolf, the last of the forms the player can acquire in Symphony of the Night, all before raising his head to the sky and letting out a loud, bone-chilling howl. As there was no room to include the form of wolf in Alucard's moveset, I felt it would be only fitting that it gets included through extra animations. And once he finishes howling, Alucard will quickly transform back into his regular form and return to his idle animation. For his colors, Alucard's options will not only make reference to the various cosmetics the player can acquire throughout their adventures in Symphony of the Night, but will also make reference to the other playable characters featured in Alucard's iconic adventure, although a couple of options will change the entirety of Alucard's color scheme, with this even including his hair color. Color number 1 is Alucard's standard appearance in Symphony of the Night, featuring his black and yellow ensemble, blonde hair, and deep black cloak with a silver inner lining. Color number 2 will have Alucard don the Blood Cloak, with this changing both the outer and inner lining of his cloak to a bright crimson red. While Alucard's outfit underneath will remain the same color, the amount of real estate taken up by the cloak on Alucard's model, as well as the shift from deep black to a bright and vibrant color, will ensure that players will never mistake one Alucard player for another. Color number 3 will have Alucard don the Elven Cloak, with this changing the outer lining of Alucard's cape to a bright jade green, while the inner lining will take on a darker forest green color. Color number 4 will have Alucard don the Royal Cloak, a gorgeous cape acquired in the Reverse Castle that will change the outer lining of the cape to a deep blue, all while the inner lining takes on a turquoise color. Color number 5 will be a bit different than the ones that came before it, as this will not only have Alucard don the Twilight Cloak, but this color scheme will also change all the yellow in Alucard's outfit to a blood red, while his hair changes from a blonde to a snow white. This combination of colors will give Alucard the appearance of his father, Dracula, and just like in Symphony of the Night, the red inner lining of the Twilight Cloak will slowly shift between a brighter and darker shade of red. Color number 6 will also go beyond just altering Alucard's cloak, with this changing the yellow in Alucard's outfit to a muted magenta, while his hair becomes a jet black. This combination of colors is actually 2 references in one, with the magenta-tinted outfit referencing Alucard's sprite in Castlevania 3, all while his black hair is a reference to Genya Arikado, an alter ego that Alucard took on during the events of both Dawn and Aria of Sorrow. Color number 7 will be the first of 2 outfits that will completely alter Alucard's color scheme, with his outfit taking on a muted blue color, while his hair becomes a deep brown. This color scheme is a reference to the most powerful vampire hunter in the Belmont lineage, and the second playable character in Symphony of the Night, Richter Belmont. Finally, color number 8 will have Alucard's outfit take on a green and white color scheme, all while his hair remains its standard shade of blonde. This color scheme references Maria Renard, one of Symphony of the Night's major side characters, who would end up becoming playable in the Sega Saturn version of the game. She also ends up becoming a boss fight, which is yet another aspect that she shares with her fellow playable character Richter. Castlevania is a franchise that I've had fairly limited experience with before I made the decision to cover one of its characters on my channel, much like the Crash Bandicoot series, the Silent Hill series, and a couple of other series before it. And while I can happily say that I came to love the likes of Crash Bandicoot and Silent Hill, I adore Castlevania, or more specifically, I adore Symphony of the Night. Having played through it multiple times for this video, it has not only become one of my favorite Metroidvanias, alongside the likes of Metroid Dread and Zero Mission, but I feel it has the potential to eventually become one of my favorite games of all time. If my 2 favorite games weren't already enough of an indicator, I am a huge sucker for gothic horror, and Symphony of the Night is gothic horror in all the right ways. And while it's arguably pretty hard to get a legitimate copy in today's day and age, it's an immaculate experience that I can recommend to anyone. As for Alucard himself, he's a fighter that feels almost like an inevitability, as since the Belmonts are already present, he really is the next best playable character choice to come out of this franchise. On top of that, Castlevania has had a slew of crossover appearances since the release of Smash Ultimate, and seeing as Alucard was the frontrunner for a majority of them, I can definitely see Alucard being added into the next Smash Bros., either on the base roster or as DLC. Of course, this is all dependent on whether or not Castlevania actually comes back, but after the series' resurgence in recent years, I don't see why it would suddenly disappear. All they need to do now is release Symphony of the Night on Nintendo consoles, and it would be perfect, and preferably a version with the original dub intact. Regardless, Alucard has all the makings of a perfect Smash candidate, and if he's allowed to escape his assist trophy prison and become a playable fighter, I'll be sure to give him a try. And with that, this challenger concept is complete. If you like what you saw and want to see more, be sure to like and subscribe. And to keep up to date on what's coming next, a link in the description will take you to my Discord, where you'll not only be kept up to date on upcoming content before any other platform, but also be able to partake in events like Cleared for Battle, where you can have your movesets reviewed once each month. Also, if you'd like to help support these videos, you can become a member of my channel or join my Patreon, where you'll get access to a bunch of assets before they become available to the public. Anything I receive goes straight back into making these videos better, so all support is highly appreciated. That's all from me for now, so until the next time I see you, I've been Felicia Fan, and I hope that you have a good one.